Shudder Sundays, episode 27, Mosquito. This is a vastly different movie than last week.
That's what I was going to say, kind of a refresher.
Crazy difference between this and Enter the Void.
It came from another galaxy. It transformed one of Earth's smallest insects into a bloodthirsty swarm of terror. Now, 5 people brought together by fate will confront their worst nightmares.
This is that B-horror sci-fi, almost like the movies that would be playing at the Primetime Cafe? The Sci-Fi Diner?
Yes.
Sci-Fi Diner. I don't remember the names. I know
At Disney?
There's the Primetime, which is the 50s.
The Sci-Fi Dine-In Theater?
Sci-Fi Dine-In is... This is probably a movie that's playing there. But this was released May 20th, 1995 in the U.S., but it released November 21st, 1994 over in Japan.
Huh.
I don't know why the difference in release dates, but maybe just a limited release to kind of test the market.
Right.
Japan kind of loves those B-grade, like, monster movies, so it makes sense.
As do I.
This was directed by Gary Jones, who I think is most notable for Xena, the Princess Warrior, directing that. This was starring Gunnar Hansen as Earl.
Ain't like a bitch.
Leatherface? No mask.
I was just gonna say, did you know who that was?
Took me a little bit when I was
Yes.
like, I mean, you don't.
I mean, it's
you would never
obviously-
know. I mean,
I wouldn't have known who it was unless I looked it up. But
yeah, I mean, you have to look it up. I mean, Leatherface. I mean, he wears the mask the whole time, so it's kind of tough to decipher who's under that.
Super cool though.
Tim Lovelace as Ray. You had Ron Ashton as Hendrix, the park ranger, but he's typically more of a writer, as seen in his not so good acting. But I think his most notable work was Smokin' Aces, which is a good little ensemble movie. And then Steve Dixon as Parks, the USAF ranger, the guy that was kind of hunting the meteors. I think that's what
The meteors.
how he kind of got brought in on this story. But why don't you give a quick little synopsis of Mosquito?
When an extraterrestrial spacecraft crashes onto Earth and a mosquito drinks the blood of a dead alien, it turns into a ginormous monster, infecting others and wreaking havoc on a small town in this slapstick creature feature.
It was, yeah. Let's get into the Shudder Skull rating. Shudder Skull rating was a little surprising. Did you happen to look at it?
I did happen to look at it
All right.
today.
Well, what is it?
A 4.
4 out of 5.
4 out of 5 skulls?
Same as Enter the Void. Maybe this would receive a 15-minute standing ovation
Standing
at
ovation.
Cons, whatever it is. Probably. I gave this a 20-minute standing ovation when I finished watching it. Rotten Tomatoes. Did you happen to look at those?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Look at the Rotten Tomatoes.
So the critics, what do you think the critics on Rotten Tomatoes gave Mosquito?
Probably a 64.
You're pretty close. 60%.
Okay.
60%. Now, the audience
Sounds about right.
is a little different.
Better or worse?
It's worse. What do you think the audience rating for Mosquito is for Rotten Tomatoes?
Maybe a 35.
Again, you're pretty close. 38.
And I promise I didn't look at these either.
38%
So
for Rotten Tomatoes.
those are some pretty good guesses. Maybe I just play the lottery.
No, you do that enough.
No.
And we're still not millionaires, so. The original title was actually supposed to be Skeeters.
That's funny.
But it was changed when another killer mosquito movie coming out in 93 was called Skeeter.
Well,
So they did change it up. The other working titles were Night Swarm and Blood Fever.
kind of like Night Swarm.
I do.
Blood Fever's kind of cool too.
I think they're both good titles, but for this kind of movie, like, it just basic. Just call it what it is, Mosquito. Like,
Mosquito.
those Blood Fever, I would think of like Cabin in the Woods,
Maybe like a
slashery style,
swampy kind of thing?
Yeah, like just call it Mosquito. It's just a giant creature feature. It's fun. Some little notes that I took while I was going through this. The lady right off the bat when they smashed into the giant mosquito. This looks like a proboscis or proboscis. Like, what? Nobody is just talking like that in the world.
She's like she's a scientist or something, or some kind of
Yeah,
like...
that makes sense that she would know that, but I was like...
yeah.
And then it led me down a rabbit hole. I'm like, damn, what do I call that? The mouth?
A
The
probe?
beak? like the
A probe?
It's not like a stinger.
Stinger, kind of?
Like, but it's the stinger's on the butt
poker?
usually.
The poker?
Yeah, I was like, I don't know, what do I actually call that? The mosquito nose? It's like a long beak,
Kind of.
I guess.
Its mouth?
I never like thought about what I would call that part of it, but it threw me off. I was like, that was pretty like forced screenwriting, but. This was classic 80s horror. There was a bunch of girls playing volleyball, and it was only close-up shots of their butt and their boobs.
It's so funny.
And then one guy in the peeping Tom just with the binoculars.
He's like,
"Ooh,
come
yeah.
on, jump,
Oh, yeah."
baby.
I was like, this is 80s. This is 80s all over it.
It's funny that this was so 80s, too, because it was shot in the, like, mid-early-ish 90s,
Yeah,
kind
it
of.
just
But I
had
guess
that
still
80s
had that.
vibe.
Yeah, which I like, though.
Yeah, it was...
Still reminiscent
It
of that
felt
time.
like an homage, almost, like, to that
Yeah.
genre and that style, but... This guy... I forget who this was.
I feel like there's a lot of characters in this, so it was kind of hard for me to remember all their names,
and they
too.
kind of dropped off a little bit, but
Yes.
it might have been whoever the manager was in the office, where he's just like, they're out there watching. They got blood fever. They crave it. It was like
They
almost
still threw
like
that name in there.
Yeah, it was like a wartime general, like just talking about mosquitoes, because that was what prompted him to go out with like the giant fumigator.
Yes.
Just,
I
like,
love those
spraying
things.
the
Those are so
people.
funny.
It was like, again, very 80s.
That's what I was thinking.
Like
I was like,
70s almost, like not caring about any form of
Health.
like health hazards.
I was like, that can't be good for you. Or when he's like hiding underneath the canoe and they think it's one of the mosquitoes hiding underneath the canoe, and then he blasts him with
Yeah.
the mosquito repellent right in his face. He's like, no, it's just me. And I'm like, he definitely would have passed out.
those are toxic fumes, yeah. But it almost gave me like, it almost felt like Jaws.
Yes.
Like the mayor was like, planning the attack against the sharks and how to, ward them off or whatever. But that was fun. Rex, when he was getting chased by the giant mosquito.
Don't shoot me!
In the woods?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh, it looked so ridiculous.
And they
I
just
kind of
go right
loved
to
it.
the buddy. He's like, oh, dog shit. I was like, this is awesome.
Or when, I'm pretty sure it happened, did the mosquito like drop a turd on him when he was in the outhouse? Because he was like, oh,
I
someone,
don't know
he
if it was dripping or something.
He was looking up and he was like, something like big fell on him. I was like, what the heck is falling from the ceiling in the outhouse? And then it like chases him out of the outhouse. But the cutscene that it does is just like the mosquito flying out of it and like clearly like
Someone just
honest.
Yeah, and then they just immediately shoot Rex. It's just like giant flying mosquito, and then they pop him right in the chest. It's like
Oh.
little friendly fire right there. But that's one way to, trim the cast down a little bit. The tent sex scene.
What you doing, babe?
When the guy gets out of there. Just like, oh, this is awesome.
This movie was actually pretty funny.
And then the mosquito just getting that ass blood. Just stabbing that girl in the butt.
Oh, God.
Completely naked. And I guess I did
Had
see
to.
Margaret Gommel. The camera accidentally dropped on her when filming this
Really?
scene.
I was going to say, they had to add a little sex appeal to this to kind of balance it out.
Again, classic 80s nude scenes. Just because. When they started finding like all the dead bodies, when they went back in and that I guess I'll just refer to him as the manager, that leader of that camp or whatever, and they go into his office and he's like greened out and like killed in the chest.
Yeah.
They're just like immediately like this is not human. Like, how do you automatically like? I would jump to like murder. Like he looks fucked up, but like
Right.
I wouldn't just be like, this is not a human. Like, what is doing this?
Or when they get to the campsite, when Doc gets to the campsite and all the people are dead, like lying around the tents and stuff like that, and it's clearly like a bunch of like haunted house, like white face makeup with like a couple scratches
Yeah.
on the face. And I was like, this is making it more look like it's kind of like a zombie movie. Like they're about to come back. They look so like they've been dead for a while. And then I was thinking it didn't really show it too much, but I was like, did this mosquito come around and just peck everyone? Like
guess so.
To death?
There was one guy in that scene, you could still see him moving his legs around.
Really?
Yeah,
I
one of
didn't
the
pay that
dead
attention.
guys.
But then it was like, I guess the mosquitoes like had a bunch of like radiation and contaminated everything too with their, because that's why when they would suck up the people's blood, it would be like green goo
yeah.
and
Well, that might be from the alien
or the alien
part
blood.
of it,
Then
I guess. I don't know, but they end up getting into the RV, and then they have this like CGI mosquito
chasing right behind it, like 7 of them. It looks like an episode of Pokemon.
But
with
it's just like
with Butterfrees chasing behind it.
it was like they didn't. I feel like they weren't even moving. It was so like Scooby Doo.
Yes.
It was like
Yes.
it was like
All
oh
in
my
like
God.
one like huddle.
Yeah. There must have been no budget. I don't know. There's no budget in this thing.
I looked up the budget.
Oh, it can't
and
be.
the
All right.
and the box office.
So you know
for this,
you know the
actually.
budget then?
I do.
All right. It's got to be like $100,000.
You're close. 200,000.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
And the box office was a little over 900,000, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow. Okay.
Which is not terrible for
No,
yeah.
that's a profit
for
right
a movie
there.
like this, especially something
That's a
smaller.
profit. So like, this is the only reason why they brought in Gunnar Hansen was the ending. So he could wield the giant chainsaw.
The chainsaw at
He's
the
like,
end.
oh man, I haven't held one of these in 20 years. It's like so breaking the fourth wall.
I loved it. I loved it.
But like you can clearly that's
Mm-hmm.
why they brought this guy in.
I had another thing I took for a note too. When the mosquitoes are chasing after the RV and she kind of falls outside the RV and then the mosquito like comes up right next to the side window of his driver.
Mm-hmm.
But the best part was when the RV is driving on its side on the 2 tires, falls on its side and then skids for like another mile. And I was like,
So ridiculous.
so ridiculous.
They knew how to blow up the house pretty quick.
They-
They MacGyvered a bomb really fast. I know that guy's like smart and he's chasing like meteors and he's scientific,
Scientist,
but
whatever,
like
yeah.
he just whipped up like an alarm clock bomb that can like blow up this house in 3 minutes, which ended up being like the longest 3 minutes in history. Because they were like pulling them up in like the dumbwaiter.
Yes.
It's just like slowly. Then they had to go to the basement, and they do this, and then they do that, and then the house blows up, and then Parks hides in a fridge and survives.
He makes it.
I guess he paid attention in the
I had that
50s
on
when they were
my
talking about
notes, too.
nuclear warfare. It was like, oh, get in the fridge, it'll protect you.
And it's so funny because this was kind of like 50 style, I feel like, too. Like those 50 style, like creature feature, as I kind of told in the description, sort of movies.
Yeah.
Or like a drive-in kind of cheesy movie. I love it.
Yeah, it was definitely made to pay homage to those things for sure.
It actually reminded me to bring in Horror Nights a little bit, but kind of what a Bug's house would have been like.
Bugs eaten
if
alive.
it was just
Yeah.
mosquitoes.
Oh yeah, that made a lot.
I
yeah.
loved it.
So let's get into our breakdowns and our topics. So the good. What did you have for the good of Mosquito?
So even though the acting wasn't very up to par, it was still good for what this was. I feel like this was a cheesy, kind of schlocky, as Nick would say. Not so much horror, but a lot of blood and guts and mosquito gore, which I thought was really fun.
Mosquigore.
That's a good one, mosquito. I thought it was really fast paced. I feel like usually for me, sometimes it's hard to get into a movie because I get distracted at the beginning if it doesn't really like dive into it right away, and I feel like this did. I feel like the ending did kind of drag on a little bit, but not too bad. Another thing I had was when I think it was RJ, if I'm not mistaken, when the mosquito sucks like the life out of him essentially, and he like shrivels
yeah.
up. Then
His
it's like
eyes start to
eyeballs.
bulge.
That was actually really good. All the practical effects in this. And did you know some of the mosquitoes were made out of like clay? It was like claymation mosquitoes.
Makes sense. A little
And
Tim
then
Burton style.
yeah, it was a lot of practical effects though that were used, which is cool. Other than the flying mosquitoes, I would assume in the RV chase. What about you?
I did put practical body effects.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that those were cheesy but like fun. You could tell shoestring budget, but they still sort of made it work. They did something with nothing. I'll give them that. It was
They
like
did.
a very blanket story, but they ended up going to a couple different cool little settings. They did, like you said, move the story along pretty well. It was a shorter movie, so that's the fast pace. And it's just so absurd. It's kind of like a Killer Clowns. Like, you just have to completely
Yes.
suspend all disbelief and just, like, jump into the movie and just have fun. I think Park's acting was really good. He was probably the standout actor in this for me. And it's just a fun B-grade horror movie. So bad. What did you have for the bad of Mosquito?
I didn't really have too much bad, I guess. This movie did what it was supposed to do. I feel like I didn't really have too many negatives about it. Maybe it was already a short movie, but the ending to kind of pick up a little bit more. I feel like the scene before they get in the house and blow it up and all that kind of stuff, when they get in the pipe and flamethrower them, blow them up, the mosquitoes down the pipe, and it's a big old chase scene. I felt like that could have been cut down a little bit. A lot of chase scenes.
I put the acting.
The acting, yeah.
Was not good. For, like I said, other than Parks, like, everything else was pretty forced. The CGI, or lack thereof, was very not good, but again, early 90s.
I feel like it's like I don't want to hate on it, though, because after seeing how much the budget was and for them to make it work like this, I was like, that's not bad,
They absolutely did what they could with what they had.
Yes.
But I still have to look at it, and the mosquitoes chasing the RV was pretty unforgivable, I'd say. And that's really all I had for the bad, because there's not a lot in this movie. It's just a fun, stupid watch, and that's really all they meant it for it to be.
And I like that they went the route, too, that it wasn't just automatically the story of, like, a killer mosquito or a gigantic mosquito that came out of nowhere. Like, I thought the alien spacecraft crashing into Earth meteor, quote-unquote, is what they thought it was at first. And how you mentioned Killer Clowns, it's kind of almost identical to the opening scene of Killer Clowns when that clashes down. So I thought it was a fun ride.
Yep. So top moment. What was your top moment for Mosquito?
So I kind of already mentioned it a little bit earlier, but the scene where RJ gets his
Junior?
Junior, I'm sorry.
There's a lot of names in this
There
movie.
is a lot of names in this movie. I was dyslexic for a second.
And they don't say
My
a lot
apologies.
either, so you just kind of like have to guess who they are.
Megan was easy. She was the only woman in this, really. So, but when his eyes pop out and all the green goo slime oozes out, and probably when you realize that he survived in the fridge, he made it out, and when they find him.
Yeah. So for my top moment, I also had when Junior's eyes were bulging out like Beetlejuice.
Yes, that's what it reminded me of. Was
Yeah.
Beetlejuice. I was trying to think of it. I was like, this reminds me of something. It was Beetlejuice when he gets the shrunken head.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
The eyes pop out. Yeah. I thought that was just a fun,
It was.
over the top moment. So what would you change about Mosquito?
Maybe if it had a better budget, give it a little bit more substance to work with, I guess.
Okay,
Better
storyline. You would add a little
storyline,
bit more.
yeah.
I put more big mosquito attacks. Like the CGI ones were iffy, but I would have added more big puppets,
Okay.
more stuff like that.
All right. That's a good one.
So who is this for?
I feel like this is for anyone who loves B to C grade. Wouldn't say horror movies, but kind of up that alley. A movie you would watch at a drive-in, and something that's an easy watch and doesn't take too much time consuming.
Yeah,
I don't really know how to explain it.
I put the schlocky B-grade sci-fi horror.
Yes, sci-fi horror. That's a good
Killer
way
Clowns.
to explain it. Yes.
What's the other one? Like the Killer Tomatoes.
Oh, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes or something
like
like that.
if you like that
The Blob.
style of movie, this is kind of right up your alley. This is just a quick, fun watch. Like
It
if you
is.
just want to throw something stupid, nonsensical on TV, just pop this on. So our fear and beer rating. Fear, obviously a scale of 1 through 5, how scary this movie is, and a beer rating 1 through 5, how much did you enjoy this movie? So what did you give the fear rating for Mosquito?
The fear rating, I gave Mosquito a 1.
I will mimic your 1. It's not scary.
Not to
Sci-fi
bash on it,
horror.
it's not-
just,
yeah.
It's just not scary. Killer Clowns to me is not scary either, but I love that movie. So your beer rating, 1 through 5, how much did you enjoy this movie?
I gave this a 3.
A 3? Give it a 2.5.
That's fair too.
It's right in the middle for me.
Yeah.
I will probably return to this at some point. I feel like this is a good summer movie, a good summer watch.
Yeah.
Just the vibes of it give me like that summer.
Campy.
Because it takes place in the camp a little bit.
The
so
National Park.
it's just a fun watch. So that was Mosquito. Check back on April 1st, just a couple days, when we will reveal what we're going to be going into on April.
Nick's picks, possibly.
Well, we'll find a different theme.
We'll see.
But until next time, we'll see you.